It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Welcome to County-Wide. I'm Paul David. Good to have you in studio today. Today we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of us don't like to talk about, and that is suicide. We've had a couple of recent teenage suicides in Prescott that really hit the community hard. We had Lieutenant Ken Morley from Prescott Police on the air talking about not those specific suicides, and we really don't do suicides on our newscast. It has to be some really bizarre circumstances surrounding it. But we did have two teenagers take their own lives 1 week apart from each other. And then that weekend we decided to do a poll and find out how many parents talk to their kids about suicide, just so they know. And if you remember, it was a couple weeks back, 62% said they'd talked with their kids about suicide, but 33% said that they had not and didn't know how they could even bring the topic up. And so that kind of sparked me to say we need to get some people in here to find out what we can do to help those 33% to be able to talk to their kids about suicide. And it doesn't have to be just kids, it can be adults as well. So our guest today, let's get to that, Director of Development and Communications for the West Yavapai Guidance Clinic is Laura Norman. Thanks for coming in today.
Okay.
And then Patty May with Verde Valley Guidance Clinic is back with us today as well, here in the Verde Valley. So we've got both sides of the mountain to hear talk about it. Let's get right into it. First of all, when I talk to the police agencies, I'm hearing, and again, I was talking to Ken Morley with Prescott Police Department. He had said at the time we were talking about these teenagers that they have seen a tremendous amount of suicides over the last couple of years, a major increase. He didn't have the numbers in front of him, but he did say that he felt like it was twice as many as usual. So I don't know if it's 20 to 40, 40 to 80, but it's alarming, and they were alarmed by it, which even sparked me more to want to get you folks in here to talk about this. So are we seeing an increase in suicides in Yavapai County?
I'll jump in first.
Okay.
On our side of the mountain, my agency serves about 7,000 people a year. And that's a lot, and we're very proud of that. And Patty's agency serves thousands as well. But that means still there's many, tens of thousands of people in this area who we don't know if they're connected at all to supports if they're stressed. Do they have good support networks? Do they have counselors, family structures? So we're not really sure, for example, what's going on out there statistically. All we know is anecdotally in our own connections with law enforcement, emergency rooms, other types of first responders, and our own crisis team who responds in western Yavapai County to people who are in crisis, in psychiatric crisis, whether they're enrolled clients or not. And all those indicators say yes. In the last 2 years, we've seen more attempts and more completions, not just in teens, all ages. And as we were discussing before we came on live, the official suicide data lags. So you can't go right somewhere and look up, yesterday's suicide statistics. There are things like medical examiner reports, and they have to actually rule deaths that are not clear. Was it accidental? Was it a suicide? So all those things take a while to get official, right, Patty?
Right, absolutely. And I would agree with Laura, because the number of people that we see in the ER come to our clinic who have made an attempt or who have ended up in the hospital because somebody felt they were making an attempt has definitely increased. And I believe that the stress, lack of health insurance, and the unknown factor of how many people aren't served or don't know that they can go seek help for something that could be leading them to a suicide. People don't always go to mental health agencies to seek help for depression or anxiety or other mental health illnesses.
Do we really know what the increase is? Why there's been such an increase over the last couple of years?
No, I mean, we would have to make some supposition, and what we see, at least from when we talk to people out in the community, is that some people have had multiple stressors, and they've been holding on. They've been patching it together. They were living with friends, and finally that's exhausting, or they lost their home, or they lost their job, or it's just finally coming to a head, I guess. That's one of the things that we've seen, plus a loss of for some of the people of health care benefits, whether it's health care or mental health care.
And I can conclude the same thing. There's we all knew that we were in a recession, but we're now starting to feel the results of it. It took a while for people to drop off of health care. I've helped out at a couple free medical clinics where the number of people you see coming to get free health care services are not just poor indigent people, people who may be in their 60s who lost a job that they'd had for 30 years. All of a sudden they don't have any coverage. These people are really stressed and don't know which direction to go. And
so a lot of this may be just enough is enough. I can't take anymore.
I think that's...
It might be, and that's one of the challenges. You know, we sit around tables in terms of leadership at our clinics and go, why is this happening? Well, we can't necessarily answer the why, but what we can do is get out to our community and give them some education on this topic, so maybe they'll know what to look for to help prevent and bring those numbers down.
Okay. Now, before the show, we were talking about there's a difference between teen suicide and adults committing suicide. You had some interesting information on that.
Well, I'll start off, and then Patty is
that's how we're going to do it today.
Clinician. We're
Laura
just
and Patty are going to bounce off
back and
each other. I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut as much as I can.
In the presentations that we've been doing in the Prescott area, one of the things that our clinical presenters tell the people in the audience is that the teen brain is different. Even though the teens think they're fully developed and can handle anything and know perhaps everything, the area that handles impulse control and judgment and decision making is not fully developed. So for a 15-year-old, a thing that you and I would consider just daily business, a slight or a criticism or
broke up with my boyfriend.
broke up with my boyfriend, and of course, at 15, I was going to, that was going to be him, for the rest of life. Those things are life changing. They're dramatic. Whereas the 45-year-old, I'm moving on. I'm not going to worry about these things. And so in teens, you see a more impulsive action in terms of suicide. When an adult, it's a more thoughtful process. Would you agree?
I definitely would agree with that, and I think some of the things that we're seeing are the means. They used to say women attempted more, men completed more because men use more violent means. Now they're seeing that women use just as violent means. Suicide by guns increasing. I think the most suicide attempts that we see are almost always by an overdose of medications and sometimes a cutting, but overdose of medication seems to be the most attempt. When you find somebody that's completed it, those are pretty lethal means, hanging, the guns, and so on. We were talking also about little children don't even realize that death is final. And so
that one surprised me when you said that before the show, that kids don't think of it as final.
Right.
Continue.
They may think that I'll show you, you haven't paid any attention to me, and fully expect to wake up the next day, and which is very devastating to the parents and so on. And a lot of the teens, and the adults that we see in the ER after they're there, and I really didn't want to do that. I didn't want to commit suicide. I just didn't know where to go next. So those are some things that I think we see a lot, and that's where the prevention piece comes in. And I think that's what both clinics are really trying to do a lot. You asked the question about how do you ask, how difficult it is to talk to someone about that. And I know I just found out today, and I think it's wonderful, West Yavapai and Laura's group is teaching, set up a class on suicide prevention, and we teach mental health first aid, which also teaches people how to assess for suicide at the Verde Valley. So it's such a huge thing to help people get into mental health treatment that both sides of the mountain are doing everything they can to get the word out. There's help. You don't have to suffer from mental illness. You don't have to take your life. Everything is treatable, and I think that's a big key to help people understand that.
We do have to take a break. I'm really glad that we've got somebody from both sides of the mountain here today. But you both agree that suicide has increased over the last couple of years. Okay.
And I would like to say suicide attempts.
Suicide attempts. Okay. We have to take a break. Patty May with Verde Valley Guidance Clinic in studio today. Also Laura Norman with the West Yavapai Guidance Clinic in Prescott. Stick around. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I was in junior high the first time I caught my mom using denial. She had to have known her painkillers were missing because I kept stealing them. Her and I was so out of hand.
So she doesn't even know? I'm going out.
It was like I could get away with anything.
You kids have fun.
And that was when I knew. And she was addicted to denial.
Denial is a drug. Get help. The partnership at drugfree.org.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Now, some action from the courts. Billie Jean King renewing her rivalry with Arthritis. First set, furious volley, and right to the net for a winner. Beautiful forehand there. Arthritis, stunned. And here, match point. Billie Jean with the ace, taking it in straight sets. Afterwards, a jubilant Billie Jean King.
Tennis is a weapon for me with arthritis. There's nothing like it for me to hit a ball, run to the ball, anytime, any court. I'm ready. Let's go.
What's your weapon against arthritis? Find out at fightarthritispain.org.
Back to Countywide, I'm Paul David. Good to have you in studio today. Verde Valley Guidance Clinic's Patty May here. West Yavapai Guidance Clinic, Laura Norman in studio today. We're talking about suicide and how to approach, well, we're going to get to it right now. How do you approach your kids to talk to them about suicide? 33% of the people that took our poll said they had not and didn't know how to approach the subject. So let's get into that right now, because it is a tough subject. It really is. I would not want to talk to somebody about it. If I thought somebody was suicidal, I don't know what I would do about it. So what should I do about it?
And I think that's the key, is to be willing to talk about it. We teach mental health first aid, and one of the sections is how to ask people how to talk about suicide. There are lots of myths and a lot of facts. One of the myths is if you ask someone about his or her suicidal intentions, you'll encourage the person to kill themselves. That is the opposite is true. See, now that would be the stopper for me right there. Is that, God, if I ask this person about that, they're going to wind up going out and do it right away. Part of it is if somebody is so lost and they have suicidal thoughts, when you talk to them about it, they feel less lonely, and all of a sudden there's an ally and someone with them, and not them alone against the world. There's somebody that they can confide in. So to ask that question directly, are you thinking of killing yourself or committing suicide? That directly. That directly, and without a sense of dread, not because you don't want to know the answer. You just ask the question. And then we help you in where to go next. You know, never feel like you have to solve the problem or be the clinician or stop the person, but just to get the dialogue going, ask the question. And the fact that we don't ask, we might not want to be the person that didn't ask and find out 3 days later that somebody we loved was gone. So those are some of the things that need to happen. And people who talk about suicide do attempt suicide. They're not just seeking attention. They have thoughts about killing themselves. There's always warning. This one was a surprise for me. Most people go to their medical doctor at least 3 months before they commit suicide and talk about it or seeking help.
Especially older adults, especially older.
And they may not they may not talk about the suicide, but they go for help. They're thinking about it. And if somebody would ask them that question, we might be able to get them stop it before something happens.
There's a big recognition now in the general medical community. They're doing depression screenings and substance abuse screenings when people come for medical appointments. Because for an older adult who might be isolated, he might have lost a spouse, their doctor is the person they see the most besides the checker at Safeway. You know, I mean, and the person at the drugstore. I mean, that is their trusted soul. So they may have given some signal there, but if those doctors or providers ask the question directly, it's a different story.
Now, we talked about this just a little while ago about how teenagers, I had a daughter who just loved drama. Drama was what the world was made of, and if there wasn't any, she'd almost go out and create it just so she could have some drama. How do you, as a parent, just because you know your child just loves this drama aspect, how do you know when you should or shouldn't ask him that type of question? Or do you just ask him anyways.
There are some, excuse me, there's some warning signs, and people give warning signs if they're thinking about committing suicide.
Like what?
They might write a note. They might be, those old things that you hear about reading dark poems and so on, that's not so far-fetched. They start giving things away. But what I think is the biggest warning sign is if you see people's personalities do a complete change. You want to start asking questions about what's going on. All of a sudden, this happy-go-lucky kid is morose or down or uncomfortable. Or the child who is the valedictorian of the school, who everybody thinks, wow, why would they ever do anything, is under so much pressure to perform that every once in a while you need to ask these kids what's going on for them. How are you doing? Boy, that's a lot of pressure you're under. Are you okay with it? We have to start asking those questions about their mental health, which will eventually lead us to ask the questions about, have you thought about hurting yourself or killing yourself?
And did we just blurt this out?
Well, one of the things that, the question you just asked, came up at a presentation that we gave, because one of the moms was saying, but what if you hear your kids say, I'm just going to kill myself if I don't get an A on this test, okay?
Right.
Well, what my clinician, what my counselor said, use that as an opening. You've got this topic that's, out there. They know 2 people in the community just killed themselves. They've just said that, and say, stop. Do you know those words really have a specific meaning? And if you're going to say those, it's not a TV show, it's not drama. Those mean specific things. I need to take that seriously. Now, do you mean that? And it's not to chastise them. It's to reframe. Those words mean something. And look what just happened. And so don't toss them around like they mean nothing. So it doesn't mean as soon as they say that phrase you have to tackle them and take them to a guidance clinic, but it needs to be addressed with the kids.
And I think that an excellent point right there. You're hearing that this kid is overwhelmed. If I don't get an A on a test, I might kill myself. That's back to your earlier statement. That's something I wouldn't think of.
See, that would roll off my back if my kids had said something like that to me back then. Oh, I'm going to kill myself. This test is so hard, or I'm going to kill myself. I just lost my boyfriend. I guess I wouldn't have thought of that as being a serious type of threat, but maybe I should have.
Well, and you're a parent who's listening to their kid regularly, and again, if that's not, if the drama is not a big change, then it probably didn't resonate with you. Right. But still, I mean, those words in the teen community, they don't always know that they mean finality. I mean, I'm not going to wake up in the morning, if I kill myself. This is not just a statement. So it's just an opportunity to educate, and you need to listen. And there may not be a suicidal thing, but there might, right, Patty?
Absolutely, there may not be at all. But you've already recognized that this person is overwhelmed. And we're talking about what leads to all this increased amount of suicidality and suicidal thinking. Stress. Well, somebody who is so overwhelmed that, if I don't get an A on that test, I'm going to kill myself. You might want to say, geez, that test is not as important as you are. And how to help start to talk to people about their mental health issues and their stress way before they get to the point where they're thinking of suicide is part of what we want to do.
Okay, you know what, we're going to take another break, and then we come back real quick. We'll just have you guys talk about, okay, if my teen is thinking about this seriously, what do we do? What's the outcome, okay? Laura Norman with the West Yavapai Guidance Clinic in studio today, along with Patty May with the Verde Valley Guidance Clinic. I'm Paul David. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have 2 ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. This could be the difference between life and death if caught in a fire.
Yes, ready?
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Fire can happen at any time. What would you try to save?
My family photos.
My grandfather's war memorabilia.
My dogs.
I'm firefighter Brandon Wacker with the Cotton Fire Department. A working smoke detector is your best defense in the event of a fire. Make sure you have a smoke detector in every room except your kitchen. Test them monthly and change the battery once a year. Take the time to save the things you can't replace.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many. But what if you've had just one too many? Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Countywide. Good to have you in studio today. If my child says to me, I ask, are you feeling like hurting yourself? No, I'm actually supposed to be direct. Are you thinking about taking your own life? You're thinking about killing yourself? If they say yes, what should my next step be?
In the Prescott area, in western Yavapai County, they should get them to help, get them to a professional, okay? And so if they are already connected with somebody, then call that counselor, call that doctor. If they're not, or if they can't reach them, they just need to call my clinic. We do crisis intervention regardless of how rich, how poor. We do crisis intervention work on anybody who calls. If you think it's a crisis, if you're not sure, you know, why run the risk? Bring them in 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. They can walk in at my Prescott Hillside or my Prescott Valley Windsong Center clinics. They can always call 24/7, 445-5211.
Okay.
And we'll do the crisis intervention work. Our therapists will sit down with mom and the teen and say, what's going on here? See if there's a safety plan, see if everything's good, or if there's, are there any other steps that need to be taken? And that works for adults too. We're not just talking about teens.
Right.
Yeah, adults too.
The number's 445-5211?
Correct.
445-5211. And then Patty May,
we have
Verde
the
Valley?
exact same thing on our side of the mountain, and our number is 634-2236. From 8 to 5, people can walk in and speak with a crisis counselor or a counselor at the clinic, 80s Cottonwood Street. And from 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock the next morning, all night long, we have a call line that you can call in and talk to a crisis counselor, go to the ER. The other thing that we do in part of the program we teach is we encourage people to talk to someone, a professional, a faith-based practice. Just talk to someone about it. Get yourself some information. Call the clinic. Look on
Oh yeah, there's a great website, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP. Excellent resources for parents and people who are not parents who just want to learn about suicide. It's got some has great video, and it's just a great site. That's where we got a lot of information on the presentation that we do.
And I think the most important thing to do is not to be afraid of it. Because you don't want to be on the other end of it, not having asked the questions. You don't want to be sitting saying, gosh, I wish I had just known or asked. So be alert, be aware, and be ready to ask the question.
All right. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming in. I really appreciate it. It is really great that we've got somebody from both sides of the hill to talk about this, and it confirms that, you know, suicide is up, so we have to do something about it. To talk with Laura's West Yavapai Guidance Clinic, 445, tongue-tied all morning, 445-5211. Patty May, 634-2236, AFSP.
Yes.
I bet if I just search into the AFSP.
American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It's got some great stuff. If people want more tools, you know, and they feel that will be helpful talking to their teens.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Countywide. I'm Paul David. We will talk to you again next time.
This has been Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday as we tackle the hot topics and talk to the decision makers across Yavapai County. That's Countywide with Brad Miller and Paul David each Tuesday and Thursday on this Yavapai Broadcasting station.